This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. And welcome everybody to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. I'm sitting here masked up in my dimly lit but comfortable studio with the very interesting Miss Caroline Ināya Hargreaves. Hi.
Hi.
Here you are. You made it.
I made it.
I was telling you before, I could have picked you up at the train station, but you found your way. Did you take a taxi from the train?
No, I walked.
You walked.
Slowly and steadily.
Slowly and steadily. You know, this isn't such a big city or such a big neighborhood that you would actually get lost. So you probably found your way quite easily.
I did.
Good. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. It's an honor being here.
Oh, an honor, she says. Well, I'm likewise honored. You have such an interesting life. I feel like I've only dipped my toe in that pool of information and knowledge that you live in day to day. So I'm looking at this conversation that we're going to have as an opportunity for me to learn quite a bit. So I'm going to ask you questions. Just get your answering mind up.
I'll try my best.
Let me just start with, I think you have such an interesting name. Caroline Ināya Hargreaves. Now, that is not the typical Norwegian name.
Definitely not.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, we've lived in Oslo for 8 generations, actually. My full name is Caroline Ināya Hargreaves. So there's more to it.
There's so much more to it.
But my
There's a lot of levels there.
Yes. My ancestors come from... actually, I took this DNA heritage test. We gave it to my dad for Christmas last year.
Okay.
And it came out 95% actually Scandinavian.
Okay.
Which was a surprise because you wanted to say something exciting or that you're from like the parts of the world or Africa. But it was 95% Scandinavian, and the name Hargreaves actually comes from England,
yes.
And we can trace it back to James Hargreaves, which was the inventor of the spinning jenny.
Oh, wow.
Yes, a machine that kind of kicked off the Industrial Revolution. And since then, his ancestors have taken that machine to Norway, and today we're actually only 3 people with the name Hargreaves in Norway.
Interesting.
And the name Carolina means free woman, in essence, so it suits me well.
I think your first name rings with a, if I were to put it in the terms of music, it's like some sort of crazy but beautiful sounding chord, because it's a mixture of American or British, English speaking combined with Norwegian. It would be Caroline or Carolina, but you're Carolina.
Yes, that's true.
I just think that is so cool.
Thank you. I started getting used to it, and like in all these spiritual circles, you always kind of find a new name, or you have an initiation in your life, and then another name comes in. But Carolina is a name that was given to me by my parents, so it's like my earth name, and then anything else can come from that.
How important is a name? How important is how others perceive your name when it comes to your own identity? For example, my name is John Allen Reese. And some people insist on calling me Jon Allen Reese. And that's fine. But if I say, hey, it's not Jon Allen Reese, it's John Allen Reese. And then if they still insist on calling me Jon, at times I find that hard to accept. And I feel like it's a stupid battle to have.
Well, it's understandable.
But it isn't. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think about the name? If someone consistently calls you Caroline or Carolina, or do you react to that?
I do. Before I started setting boundaries for myself, I kind of accepted anything because I traveled a lot, and you're used to people having different dialects and so on.
So it's about setting boundaries then.
Definitely, because your name is like your melody, right? And I lived in Nepal for some years, and in Nepal, every child is born with a melody that's like part of the indigenous tradition. And your name has a specific frequency to it. So when people say your name, they actually kind of emphasize or anchor in that frequency that's yours. And that's why some people might want to go through name changes throughout their lives to kind of let go of one frequency or even own it more by keeping it or letting go.
Totally understand. totally understand. Yeah, I've read before about the frequency. It's almost like a song. Each name is a song.
Yeah.
Nepal has that. There's certain Native American tribes that have that. And I believe there are some tribes in Australia among the Aborigines who have that as well.
It makes sense, actually.
Sure,
They say that the mother can kind of tune into the song, but even before the child is born, and then the child will always be able to remember who they are and from which star system, they came from before entering this realm.
It's really such a beautiful thing if you sit and think about it. It's almost like we're missing out on something if we are not aware of the identity within a name, of the music, the song within a name. It's almost a shame that more people don't realize that, or it's a shame that I don't think of that on a daily basis.
Exactly. And, especially when it comes to these times where we don't have any specific rituals or traditions for instance, burying the placenta in the ground, which was a typical tradition before, like anchoring the child to the earth. Or even the connection with our ancestors. So your name is kind of all you have, right? It's your word and your expression, how you meet and greet the world, apart from your physical identity.
I've read before about how some societies, the mother actually will eat part of the placenta. There's some sort of ritual in that, but it's also combined, for those who are anti-nature, anti-pagan, you can also look at the science of that. They're saying that is a great way to infuse like a new round of antibodies into the mother to help her gain strength after giving birth.
Yeah, and some people also freeze down parts of the placenta for the child in the future because it has all the stem cells from birth. So it's a really important part of our tradition that we've forgot and lost.
Yeah. Now, when you say our tradition, what is your tradition?
Ooh, so that's a huge, big,
now, when I ask
question.
But when I ask that question, and I kind of asked it wrong because I said, "What is your tradition?" I think people, regardless of where they come from, they're really not all that different.
True.
For example, the Samisk here in Scandinavia are not that different from the Native Americans back home in the United States.
And it's all about coming home, right?
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So part of my story actually is that I worked abroad for many years, and I loved traveling. But at one point, I started kind of longing for something deeper, like a deeper connection to my roots, to my traditions, to the changing of the seasons at home in Norway. And I'm from Oslo, but I've spent all of my summers in a little place called Ula in Vestfold, further down south between Larvik and Sandefjord. And it's almost like that landscape shaped me, if you know what I mean, like shaped my soul, like the rocks and the leaves and the sand and the ocean.
It is beautiful down there. My wife has some family in Larvik, and we've been driving back and forth there so many times.
So for me, that's my tradition, and when I started kind of feeling into the call from like deep within my soul, it told me to go back home, to kind of drop my roots that I had been carrying on my shoulders and to start taking back the traditions of my ancestors.
Back to the basics.
Exactly, yeah.
Simplify things.
But
And simplifying does not mean less complex, though. It's kind of a duality there.
Yeah, but also bringing back the traditions from our seasons and from nature. And most of our traditions can be rooted in practices that come from the changing of the seasons, right?
You said something to me when we were planning on when you were going to come here, and I had suggested, can you come on the 21st of December? And you gave me the coolest rejection I've ever gotten in my life. You said something to the effect of, that is the winter solstice, and I have things I have to do, so I can't come. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the coolest thing. And it was another one of those experiences where I'm like, come on, John, get with it. You should know these things. Because I've done a lot of reading on these different things. I'm far from an expert, but it interests me, these old traditions that some people would call pagan. I call it spiritual.
I call it natural.
Natural, if you will. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's that was just one of the coolest rejections I ever got. So thank you for saying no to me.
You're welcome.
It was, but when we go back and we think about things like what is the significance of the winter solstice, the summer solstice, the seasons? How can we enhance our lives if we have a better awareness of what these different time periods mean?
So as a healer, I work with something I called inner sustainability, right? Finding back to a sense of wholeness in ourselves, like our bodies, our mind, our soul. And very often we are fragmented, whether it is in one of these bodies, like your actual physical body or your emotional body or your spiritual body. And very often it's because we have lost connection with nature, part of ourselves, right?
I see.
Whether it's the land that we walk on, or if it's our relative position to the stars, or if it's our ability to navigate or to calibrate our inner compass. And for me, the changing of the seasons or all these transitions are important because they represent potential kind of catalysts, for us to go into a new season with clarity, direction, peace, and grounding. And I think this is a key word, the grounding, because we have so much information, like in this time, day and age, and some of us get actual information overloads. And for me, the only thing that has worked is to let go and to kind of sink into my own relationship with my nature. Well,
that process of letting go, what does that encompass? Does that mean literally using less time on social media? Does that mean maybe being not as available because you're not carrying a cell phone around with you?
Yeah, and in essence, again, it's about coming back home to the present moment where the heart resides, right? So dropping down from your mind that can become over-cluttered and simplifying so that you have more space to just be instead of do, and to be able to breathe and create space in your body for whatever needs to unfold in that very present moment. So, for instance, now with winter solstice, it's the darkest day of the year, and it's where the light, there's a shift, so the light starts growing again. So this is also something that happens inside of our bodies, right? We've been through a very hard kind of composting fall, and we've shed all of the layers that we've accumulated over a whole year. And this is a day for us to not only celebrate what we've made and achieved so far, but to release space to take in that light and to start kind of opening up to fill our cups again with a fresh vitality and life force of the earth.
I'm a man who thinks in images, and you've spoken with such imagery here, the little phrases like, take in the light and being grounded and things like that. So how much of this is things that one has to do opposed to things that one should just let happen?
That's a very good question. I think the answer has to do with your awareness, right? Because either it happens to you unconsciously, or you reach a certain level of awareness where you can actually take ownership of these rituals yourself, so that your life becomes more kind of more manageable in a way. Because then you can kind of carve out your year. You can set your own rituals. You can take an active part in the unfolding of your reality.
You, I call it nature therapy. I don't know what the exact term is, but you are quite involved, from what I've read, in using nature to heal. In other words, you can take a person or a group of persons out into the Norwegian countryside, and something happens that leads towards a certain degree of healing. Can you talk to me about that? And when I ask that question, half of my mind is thinking about my lovely wife who is out walking right now in the Norwegian countryside, and she specifically said she's doing it so that she will feel better physically. And I'll see her when she comes back. You'll probably meet her, and she will have a quicker step. She will be, standing up straighter. She will have a different look in her eye. What is that? What is this thing that you do to help people find balance and to heal through nature?
So This is called forest therapy.
What's the name of your website, by the way? tell people so they know where to go.
So my website is called NorwegianSage.com.
Norwegian Sage, SAGE.com.
And sage is kind of like, it's a word for a person that has, I'd say, mastered the kind of the contact with nature. And it's not something that I claim to have done already, but it's part of my path.
I see.
To allow myself to have this higher aspiration for my life. And
is this similar to a shaman?
Not really. I think the sage is more like this kind of translucent being that you find up in the mountains that just sits in the cave and has this little cup of tea, and he's practicing the art of contemplation.
Okay.
And he's very much in tune. I'm very inspired by the Zen traditions, and although we don't have a name for this in Norway yet, I actually call it Nordic Zen. Because this is the sensation that you get when you are in the forests. But as you know, like our society has become so fast-paced, so people have forgotten how to use nature for healing. And we do walk in the woods, but very often we bring our podcast, or we bring lots of friends, and it's a very mental experience. But forest therapy stems from a Japanese tradition called Shinrin Yoku, which literally means to bathe in the forest's atmosphere. And what we do is that we through guided meditation and sensory invitations, we reconnect our senses. So I feel that in Norwegian we have a term that's called komme til sans og samling, to come to your senses and to come back to the circle.
Yes.
The circle of equals, where you can listen deeply to the totality of the circle and get some insights for your own process. So we can be one-to-one, but we will still have the circle. We can be up to 18 people or more, where each person will tune into their present moment after having undergone a series of sensory invitations, because the trees actually release healing information that
they do. People who don't understand, maybe you live in a city that's full of concrete and you've never experienced this. There is something healing. There's something medicinal with just simply going out, being very quiet and sitting still out in nature. And I'm not talking like in your backyard. I'm talking out in nature where there's no other disturbances and you feel something.
Yeah. And what also happens is that you regain that lost connection, that you can actually bring with you into the city, and then you can start changing and shaping your life to be more tuned to the natural flow and rhythms of nature.
That's very interesting you say that. That kind of brings me to when I think, because we have a place way up in Finnmark on Seiland. That's where we're going to retire to someday. But we do have a home up there. And when we can go up there in the summer, it's a literal reset. It's almost like pushing a button on a computer and restarting it. It's a literal reset of the way we think, of the way we live and breathe. Because up there, we're not concerned with a cell phone. We don't wear a watch. Daylight and nighttime are the same. and we just live free of any concern, free of any care. And every time we do that, we get a reminder that we take life for granted. Because this rat race that many people... And I'm not saying I'm in the rat race. I like to think that I'm somewhat in control of my life. But that classic rat race that you have in this city environment it's very easy to get used to that and forget about these places of peace, these geographical places, but also that inner spiritual place of peace. It's so easy to forget that that's there, and you begin to take it for granted. How do we combat that taking for granted? How do we, this is a modern world with all of the technology, with all of the distractions. How can people learn to live within that, but still keep themselves grounded in what is natural?
I think what comes to mind, I like to speak from the very present moment. And when we were talking, I started tuning into my own body. And they say that we have this electromagnetic field around our bodies. That's called the Torus Field, right? Your awareness of your field is really important, because you can still be in a city and have a kind of a clear and pure field, right? But the second you start taking in too much information and you don't have a vent in a way for releasing emotions or for setting your boundaries and so on, this field just becomes very distorted, right? And that's when we get diseases, and that's when we get out of balance, and that's when we start projecting things into other people. It's just an overload, right? And we can go to nature to clear our field, and it's so fascinating how easy this actually can be. Yeah. But we forget that like open, silent, wild nature is actually like a luxury good in the world today.
Yes,
and we're so privileged to have this in Norway. I get requests all the time from foreigners that follow me on Instagram. That's like, oh, wow, I can't even find a silent space in my city, you know? So the fact that we have all these amazing areas in Norway of wilderness, like one means that we need to take more active guardianship of the silence, you know? And
absolutely.
But also that we have an opportunity to use it for the good of our bodies and our health.
Well, Norway is a special place. You know, here we are, where I live, in the middle of a city. But if we drive just 5 minutes up the mountainside here and park the car, there's hours of raw nature, you know, with the wildlife and the stillness and everything. So it really is readily available, you know, that place of peace, that medicine that is out there. That's something that's fairly unique in Norway, I think.
Yes, and the thing is, you know, like the deeper you go into nature, the more your dialogue, your own dialogue with your inner and outer nature starts unfolding, right? And then you'll see that nature starts speaking back.
Yes.
And you'll get answers to a lot of your questions. You can bring, like I bring people into vision quests and into more guided kind of rites of passage or ceremonies and things like that. And it's just so fascinating how nature actually starts talking back if you listen deeply enough.
It really is an amazing thing. And it doesn't have to, you know, a lot of people, when they hear us talking about this, I can just picture some people rolling their eyes and, oh my gosh, this is a bunch of hippie mumbo jumbo. This is crazy. But it's not.
Because our ancestors have lived like this, you know, like for thousands of years.
And when you think about it, you know, 5,000 years ago is really just a heartbeat ago in the run of the entire world. So it's not that long ago, you know, in the run of the universe. It's been, you know, 5 minutes ago that we were living off of the land, you know, wearing animal skins, and we had no distractions. We wouldn't survive if we had distractions. So I would imagine that it was a totally different mentality that humankind had just a short period ago. So it's not something that's not that we're not able to achieve, because it's not like it's been bred away through genetics and whatnot. It's still fresh in our minds, still fresh in our bodies. Am I right?
Yeah, very right. And you know, this is the home that we have landed on, you know, in this lifetime. And hippie or not, you know, like we still need to take care of it. And we see this now more and more, like the state of the world today, like the remedy for anything is our relative connection to nature. And when you start going with nature, it's almost like you get this wind in your back, you know, like I like to use the kind of the image of a little boat. You push down your keel, you kind of pull on the ropes, and you adjust yourself so that you get that wind of the cosmic wind, you know, in the sail. Yeah. And then you're at it, and you'll see that the more attuned you are to nature, the better she will make your life.
You speak in such imagery. I love it. You speak in paintings. It's easy to visualize what you're saying. I love it.
You should see some of my paintings one day.
I have actually. That's something I wanted to ask you about. I saw a few things on. I wonder if it was on your Instagram, maybe. When you paint, when you create art like that, where is that coming from? Is it a therapeutic type of thing? Are you trying to express something to yourself? Are you trying to express something to an audience?
So it's about, I guess, getting from complexity to simplicity. I receive the images in my mind somewhere, and then I develop them.
Yes.
So I use my hand to develop them, almost like you do with a camera. Like I take a picture of something and I see the whole image at once, and that kind of the I call it healing arts. It's a form of visionary arts, but the watercolors that I work with, I always infuse them with water from sacred springs around where I live.
Oh, really?
So I use the water from rivers or from like water that I collected in different parts of the world, like in Nepal or in Israel or in Portugal, Morocco, or anywhere, you know. Yeah. So I feel that the frequency of that place kind of is carried in the image, and I like to think that anyone should be able to understand it, like even a child. So a child who actually could be able to remember more than we do can look at the image and explain it to an adult. So it's also kind of fragments of the whole that are all coming together for me. And
so your art, your paintings, it begins with just a feeling or a vision, and then you do your best to express it through the painting.
Yeah, and sometimes I call them my pain things. You know, because some of the images come from pain, and I use pain as fuel to paint.
That is so interesting that you say that. I have a little bit of the same philosophy with my songwriting. A lot of not all of the things I write, but some of the things I write are based on me having a thought that I'm struggling with, or maybe something happened to me, or something was said to me and I'm struggling with it. I need to work through it, and I'll try to work through it. And if it doesn't work to work through it, then I put it into a song. And that 9 times out of 10 is incredibly healing. I can either move away from that negativity, or I at least know how to handle that negativity a little bit better. Yeah. And it just comes out in the lyrics when I write songs.
Yeah, and in one way, that song could also become medicine for other people that are going through the same things, right? So.
And that is I don't know, I don't feel guilty for feeling happy about making others happy. I think that is something that people should get back to. Having concern for the rest of society, and what can you do to make society better? What can you do to make individuals happier? So when someone comes back and says that a song of mine moved them, or something I posted, some words of what I thought were wisdom, and I posted online, and they say that moved them, then that's a good feeling of accomplishment. It's about being connected to the vibe of the greater society.
And here we're back to forest therapy, because what happens in these walks is that the sensation of finding your own medicine, getting in contact with your own medicine, you know, like when you share in a circle of equals, your words, your simple words from the present moment may even have a life-changing impact on somebody else, you know, but very rarely we are aware of this in our day-to-day conversations. And so silence is a luxury, and whatever we put into that silence, we should. It's
more profound. Exactly. I would think it's more meaningful.
Yes. Yeah. So we venture into the shadow world in order to find our medicine, so that we can share it with the world and our society. And I think this is like what is happening in the world today. Like more and more people are waking up to that, taking responsibility for their shadows and the pain and suffering that they've undergone through a journey of a whole life. Yeah. And then out of that comes the most beautiful medicine, right? Because you're in touch with your core, or your home and yourself. And from there, you can share it. And when you start sharing your medicine with the world, like, you attract magic, right? And a rapture and ecstasy almost.
It's and it's a good feeling. I've experienced that to a certain extent with this podcast. So, I was telling you before we went on air about how, you would have, before I started podcasting, you would have just been a person who I would have maybe seen your profile online, or maybe someone would have spoken about you, and I would think to myself, oh wow, that'd be so cool to talk to her. But because I'm doing my podcast now, I am talking to you. And it is an enhancement of my own, how do I say this? Already in this conversation, before we even had this conversation, when we were just on the phone before, you dropped a few lines, a few words of wisdom, or a few particles of interest, if you will, that already led me to begin thinking in a new way, or at least come back to an old way of thinking that I may have left by the wayside. So it's this thing that I hope people can see. You hear a lot of negative about, COVID-19 and how people can't go to work and they can't do this. But what can you do because of COVID? You can calm yourself. You can think. You can maybe get grounded and then start walking a different path. So
very true.
But I'm wondering about these nature walks. What kind of people are approaching you to get this healing therapy through being out in nature? What's the average person like? Or is there an average person?
There's no average person.
So you see business people, you see probably young people, you probably see old people.
Yes.
It's just all walks of life.
All walks of life. And that's what's so beautiful about it too. Like, you never know who will show up. And I really feel that the forest guides me in this, Sometimes there might be one person, and that's probably what I need that day, for my practice. Yeah. Other times it can be 18 people. And I find that it's a very, very powerful tool for integration, So I also bring it to retreats. We have some like a yoga retreat or a homecoming retreat, and the forest therapy aspect of it can just
is a part of that whole production.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So you can get that time that you need in nature just by yourself to reflect on one single aspect of a sensory connection to the forest, and just kind of let your thoughts dissolve for a second. So
if I come to you then and I say, Carolina, I'm stressed out. I can't bring myself down. I'm constantly wound up. My health is not what it should be. How can you help me?
So
what would it be? Walk me through. I'm just a basic guy with basic problems, but of course we individualize things, and we feel like we can feel like we have it worse than anyone else in the world. So I'm walking around with that mindset, and I come to you and I say, take me out in the woods. What can I expect? What would you tell me it would be like?
So I think first I would invite you to my home. And
where do you live? You live like on the outskirts of Oslo,
yes,
right?
Right now I live in Big Day.
Okay,
in a very cozy sanctuary.
Yeah.
And there would be a fire in the fireplace, and we would have a cup of tea, and then we would have a conversation, and I would just kind of mirror your energy and feel your energy in my body, in my field, so that I would be able to help you more or better. And we do like a little kind of mapping of where you are right now, what's the pressing issues in your life, where would you like to see yourself? Because my practice is all about connecting you to your inner teacher and your inner sage, you know? Like, I have no interest of keeping people in my web in a way.
No.
And
you want to strengthen them so that they can walk on their own,
exactly,
and move along
and
in
become
life.
Guardians, of their own nature, and to be able to share their own medicine. But first, you just need that kind of basic grounding. So whether it would be through like Reiki session or like a quantum healing session, or
let's back up. Reiki session. I've seen that written different places on your website. What is that?
Reiki is also a Japanese. I'm very inspired by the Eastern traditions and wisdom.
I think it's interesting too. I lived on Okinawa for 2.5 years on Okinawa.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So Reiki is what would help me get through a bad kind of. I had a fracture in my knee when I went to university in Scotland, actually, like a while ago now. And it's a healing modality that helped me come in touch with my life force, basically.
Okay.
And through Reiki, I'd say you connect your plus to any minus in the field.
Okay.
And it's like a 1 to 2 hour session where you work on releasing, clearing blockages in a person's energy field. I actually went to Kyoto once, and I sat in that same place where Mikao Usui received the Reiki initiation or activation from what you could say is nature, and it's just a word for a practice is about wholeness in essence. Okay. So whether it's through Reiki or like my own kind of Nordic touch ritual, just to ground and to center the soul back in place. And then we would schedule either a forest therapy walk with more people or another kind of tool for exactly what you need right now in your journey where you're at.
Okay. So when you're doing the Reiki, it's a ritual or a ceremony. Is it based on meditation, or tell us more in practical terms?
So I never reveal my spells and formulas.
I see. Yeah.
but there's many different ways.
Smart move. Okay.
There's many different ways to do Reiki.
Okay.
And the more simple, the better. But I love to use aspects of more shamanic traditions and little kind of things that I've picked up on the way through my ceremonial work and so on. So there would be elements.
So there's more than one path to the destination.
Yes,
in other words.
Yes, because some people would need like channelings, with voice. Other people might have specific issues related to the different chakras or the energy wheels in their body.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be, or it is simple. You just you open a space for healing and by invoking that Holy Spirit in a way, the whole force of the universe into that field, you're actually...
so you have to allow yourself to be receptive to these things that are there, that are all around us.
And the more receptive you are, the easier it is for the Reiki or the life force energy to flow into your body and to fill your body with light or awareness where it needed.
It's so interesting. Do you ever get into a discussion or a debate with, for example, a Christian who says that all of these things that you're talking about, it's just a bunch of garbage because all things are possible through God? Do you ever have that discussion?
My main opponent of discussion is myself.
There you go.
So I and myself get into that discussion very, very often, and then we kind of
I and myself, both of us, I and myself.
We conclude along the way when things work, right? When you see results, that's when you change or you tune in to the next step, right?
Because isn't God the same as for Native Americans, the Great Spirit? Isn't that the same thing?
Wakantanka.
Isn't God the same as the healing power of the earth around us?
Yes.
So I guess what I'm saying is and I said it myself, and you hinted to it, that there is more than one path to the same destination. I guess my thing is I would love to see that there is less conflict, less debate, but more discussion when it comes to these different paths towards bettering one's life. And I'm a proponent of bettering one's life so that one is in a better position to help others. And there's so many different ways to do that, whether it's Christianity or Buddhism or Islam or different pagan practices, being in touch with the earth and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways to do that. How can you say that one, not you, but how can people say that one of those paths is the wrong path? That's quite the presumptuous thing to say.
Yes. And I think that when you have experienced God, you will know God. When you have felt God on a deep cellular level in yourself, whether it's in the form of love, or if it's in the form of stillness and peace, or if it's in the form of divine rapture, you will know God. God is a very personal experience.
Yes.
And like Ram Dass would say, there are many paths to God. And God, for me, is found in my own personal relationship with nature, like the great mother and the great father. So my life has become this beautiful kind of dance between the mother and the father, like the mother earth and the father in the heavens, right? And my own teacher, his name is Lars Muhl, and he's this, how to describe him? He's a Danish healer. He's married to also a healer, an amazing woman called Gita Ben David. And what he actually did was he translated the Dead Sea Scrolls from Aramaic, the essence of the teachings of Yeshua, as he was called, or Jesus, which has now become a book called The Law of Light. And this kind of
he wrote the book himself?
Yes, he translated the teachings, and it's now a series of books, actually, but his main work is called The Law of Light, and it's worth a read if you ever...
I just wrote that down so I don't forget about that.
But this opens up a whole new portal in our conversation in a way, because he goes to the core of the God formula in a way. And actually, I'm also working on a translation right now of his Danish book into Norwegian, it's called the God formula.
Okay.
And it's kind of a collection of his practices of how to realize God in yourself.
Because isn't it true that the Dead Sea Scrolls and maybe some other written artifacts that have been found in the Mideast, isn't it true that is what the Bible actually is about? Mm-hmm. And this book that we call the Bible is a watered down, possibly politically influenced document that is not the full message that is originally there. Isn't that a fact? I've read that. There
are different tools for different ages and different levels of awareness. And the Dead Sea Scrolls were written in Aramaic. And Aramaic, as we know, was a much more prophetic language, right?
Yes.
So there was more space. There were less consonants and more vowels.
Yeah.
So there were more space for interpretations and for the art of revelation and prophecy, right? And today, the way things are written, there's more separation, there's more...
It's more right to the point, more precise,
yeah, but
correct?
Also more limitation in the words, right? So it kind of separates us even more from the actual sensation of God, or that Holy Presence or Holy Spirit. So when, in the time of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, they lived with the Essene communities, and these teachings were written down in the Aramaic form, which were much more revelatory and spoke in unity, right? Spoke in codes and in tongues for you to be able to make up your own mind and heart about the meaning, right?
I see. Mm. It's a little mind-boggling, because a lot of people, if one were to start to go into these different ways of interpreting, maybe one would feel less certain of the faith that they have in that specific religion. Mm. Which, I don't know, is that a bad thing, or is it a good? Because it would lead to questioning, and questioning, isn't that a good thing? Questioning leads to more answers, which leads to more enlightenment.
It would definitely shake things up and stir things up, but this is the quest of today's youth, I feel, right?
Yeah.
And the only thing left after we do that is the pure presence of the I am. That's the only thing we can know, isn't it?
Yeah.
I am that. I am that I am. And we all have different paths and different destinies and different dharmas. And
what's a dharma?
Dharma is like your kind of your sacred path. That when you get
destiny?
In touch with your destiny, in a way, you get in touch with your dharma. It's almost like that you meet that person for a reason. Like we're here today.
Yeah.
It's going to kind of set off some ripple effects that we have no idea what will be. But when you, for instance, contacted me and I tuned into this podcast and this meeting, I could feel in my body that I was supposed to be here.
You did?
Yeah.
Good. Oh, that's good.
So that's being in tune with my own dharma, like knowing that. But back to the question of these teachings, that we're entering this reality, a new time and a new age, which to a lot of people actually coincides with this winter solstice. There's a big shift happening in the world, and to me that shift is about taking personal ownership of our own life and our own reality, and the fact that we can actually shape our own reality if we are aware of each step on the way. And to me personally, it's about making my day-to-day sacred and bringing back the sacredness, the reverence of life, because that is God in essence.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Can a businessman or woman who works at a Fortune 500 company be truly in touch with themselves, truly grounded? Can they be on a path towards enlightenment?
Definitely.
Because a lot of people have this preconceived notion that you have to drop all thoughts of finances and money and social placings in order to be that person who, you have to be poor. You have to not only walk the earth, but you have to be digging through the earth to survive, literally, is what a lot of people think.
Well, some people need to take that journey in order to kind of get back to the place where they started, to get the perspective. Yeah. And in the kind of life path view, we call that the hero's journey, or the heroine's journey. Like you kind of set off on your spiritual quest, and you walk through the desert, and you slay the dragon, and you come back, and you have this newfound wisdom. And that's what happened to me. Actually, I quit. I used to work for the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I
was going to ask you about that, and that's actually the reason why I asked that question, because I was going to lead it back around to yourself, and then ask you whether or not you ever felt any conflict on what path you should take, what you should explore, and what you should let go in order to reach the place where you are now.
I loved my job so much, and I really...
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I took a diplomatic training program, and I ended up working for the Norwegian embassy in Kathmandu, which is the most incredible country, Nepal, the Himalayas and all of that. But at one point, I was kind of confronted with my dharma, and I realized I actually have to go back. And it's the most difficult decision of my life, because I left a very stable, well-paid kind of career path. And I usually use this quote by Joseph Campbell. I climbed all the way up the ladder, on top of the ladder, just to realize it was standing against the wrong wall. And I was on this top of the ladder and looking out, and oh wow, I came to the top of my dream.
That's a heck of a visual.
Yeah. And but I need to be somewhere else, and I need to start making small adjustments. And then my whole kind of hero's journey, or what one of my favorite authors, Sharon Blackie, would call the eco-heroine's journey, to come back to myself. And I'm bringing all of this wisdom into what I do right now. So my journey has become my life in a way. And back to the question, can anyone in any place achieve the same thing? Yes, of course, but you need the awareness, and you need to have the tools like your breath, to be able to expand your breath in any moment, so that you can see clearly and know which action to take in the next moment and the next transition.
I would think that that person who has the amazing career, the business that generates money, so that maybe they themselves don't have to work too much. Sometimes I look at those people as the ones who would probably find it easier to be grounded, because now, I don't believe that money will buy happiness, but I do believe that in some situations money can pay for the search for happiness. In other words, if you don't have to worry about money because you have so much of it, it can free you up to where you can take that 6-month-long trip to the Himalayas and live in a monastery, because you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay your bills. You can just do that, and that's where your focus is.
Or you can open your door in the morning and have faith that Himalayan monk will be on the next corner of your street, right? That
was quite the figurative thing, but you don't have to go to the Himalayas to reach your. But
I know what you mean. Yeah, like you need a certain stability, and you need a certain kind of root core stability. But this is where people like me come in, to kind of guide you in how to find that stability in yourself, so that at any kind of economic advantage or disadvantage, you would be able to get
navigate,
in touch with the same alchemical gold inside of yourself.
Interesting. And there, so that's why you're seeing all different types of people who approach you to go on your nature walks. What do you call it? Not nature walk. What do you call it?
The whole concept is called pathfinding.
Pathfinding.
The nature walks is just part of it, like where I see it fit for any person. Like anyone would need nature therapy or ecotherapy, but pathfinding is venturing into your inner forests and finding the clearings where you can get in touch with your inner sage and be able to ask yourself the questions that you need on your life journey for achieving that expansion that is there, and the homecoming that you always wanted and you always kind of felt in your bones,
If we look at your social life or your circle of friends, what are they like? Is it a dynamic group, or are they all people who are very much grounded, people who are, who understand these teachings that you're speaking of? Or do you have people who are outside of that in your life?
It's a very good question. I've gone through different waves of friends, and right now I'm so fortunate to be part of a community, and a wider, expanding, growing community of people in Norway that are very in touch with their hearts, and of some who are my greatest teachers. I really believe in the fact that, or the idea that your closest friends and your family are actually the best mirrors that you have for your growth. And sometimes in life we go through different stages of spiritual development, and we'll have to kind of take more distance from some people and get closer to others. But I always end up with kind of the people that I've grown up with, the people that I have in my neighborhood or in my extended friend group here in Norway. And I'm very lucky also to have had some beautiful encounters all over the world with souls that I feel very connected to. And I don't see them as much, but
they're there.
They're there, and the world's just getting smaller. So,
as you've been on your journey towards more knowledge, more information, enlightenment, being more grounded, and you said something about how from time to time you've had to maybe distance yourself from certain people. Has it ever been timed up to where you have actually been lonely because you've had to distance yourself from so many people? Have you ever felt lonely?
Definitely, but that's also part of the journey. Like, I love being bored, for instance.
Oh, I love it.
So sometimes I kind of actually...
Boredom means creativity for me.
Yes, yeah. So I actually create like little retreats for myself where I cut myself off from the world. So instead of feeling lonely, I'll feel into aloneness, or
totally different thing. Different thing. Yes.
So going from like the word atonement, at one-ment, where I can feel at one with my inner teacher. So I've had like sessions with myself. Like, I like to say that my most important client is myself, and that my early Monday morning meeting is of vital importance for my whole work week.
Again, I'm a believer in making myself as fit as possible in order to help others become fit. And when I say fit, I'm talking about happiness. So you have to think of yourself first.
Yeah, you
and do. I don't think there's that ugly word, which is selfish. I don't think that applies when you're thinking of putting yourself in the best possible position to be able to put happiness and joy out there. Yeah. That sounds kind of, no, I'm not going to say what I think people sounds like. To me, that sounds beautiful. I think that's a good way of looking at life. How fit are you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that you can bring about the optimal fitness spiritually, emotionally, mentally for other people out there.
Yeah, right. And in our search for wholeness, this also opens up a whole other Pandora's box. But you also have the aspects of the archetypes, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to be in the archetype of the hermit in order to kind of grow into another archetype, like say the king or the magician or the empress, or
Yeah.
And there comes natural waves, I guess, where these archetypes are realized inside of yourself. And especially for women with our monthly cycle, like we move through different archetypes in 1 month. Like,
yeah.
so always kind of zooming out in a way and being able to clear that space and time for yourself so that you understand that your melancholia or your loneliness is not necessarily negative. It can actually be used as fertilizer for your next step or for your quantum leap in a way.
That really fits when I think of the position I'm in right now. I guess I'm the archetypical hermit for the moment. For the last 8 to 9 months, actually, I've had very little contact with friends and associates, musician friends, and things like that. And sometimes I'm thinking, oh, that's terrible. I should pick up the phone and call Henning, or I should call, and then I don't do that. And I feel okay with that. But then those feelings of guilt will come back again. And I think I should call, I should contact, I should let them know I still care, I'm still here. And then I don't do it. And then I feel it seems to be a cyclist that is going on. And I guess the challenge is what am I comfortable with? And why have I isolated myself?
Sometimes I wish that I had this big house with a big garden, and that lots of places where people could come and sleep and be taken care of. And I think we're moving in that direction slowly and steadily. But I think this kind of our time frames aren't suited for all these different people that we try to kind of fit into our reality. So for me, at least, I always kind of fall back into this, like, number one, my family, like then my extended family, but smaller group of people, and then making sure that I create spaces or platforms where I can take in more people, but be with them in the moment and not cling to the idea that I need to keep them or in my life in order for, because that belongs to my path, like with networking and all that you're kind of clinging to a relationship even though it's expired. So back to trust, back to trusting that each person that shows up in your life, each person that comes into you, like through meditation or reflection, is there for some aspect of your spiritual growth. And sometimes actually our hardest relationships can be where we find the most wisdom.
That's very true. Just thinking about a couple of friends who, it's been crazy the last year. There's been some things, as you know, going on back in the United States, socially. Forget about the political, social things happening back in the United States. And I expressed my thoughts and feelings, and I came with what I thought could be some solutions to those social issues that were going on back home. And because I expressed that, I had a couple of friends. There's one that I'm thinking of specifically who just totally stiff-armed me and told me that I was, nuts, some kind of radical for thinking these things. And the friendship was over. And I guess it was an awakening. It was a new awareness when I realized how easy it was to just let that friend go. So I accepted the situation for what it was. And it really was an eye-opener. And I guess, but at the same time, it brings a little bit of frustration because I have other friends. Like I said, I've distanced myself or been distanced from other friends here in Norway. And I'm struggling with whether I should actively try to fix that or not. So I wish I could feel the same about these situations here as I did about those situations with friends back home.
Yeah.
It's a strange struggle. It's a strange struggle. And I'm wondering if I came to you with something like that, would you say, wow, you can help yourself by going on a nature walk with me? Is that something that would fit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I would actually advise you to bring those friends onto a nature walk with me so that you could all be together just in silence, without exchanging opinion, without kind of having to explain yourselves about why you haven't seen each other in a while or anything like that. But just let nature kind of heal that bond, between all of you. And I come from a background with peace and conflict studies, and since I was a child, that was very, very important to me.
What is your degree in, actually?
I have a master's degree in peace and conflict studies and another one in humanitarian emergencies.
Humanitarian emergencies, yes, that's the one that I read about online. Okay, so you have 2 masters.
Yeah, one master of science and one master of arts. And it's funny, like humanitarian emergencies. I took this master's degree at London School of Economics and Political Science, but humanitarian emergencies, I feel like I'm working with this every single day now. And even though I'm not working with peace processes as I was when I was in the ministry, I'm working with inner peace processes and peace processes related to communities.
So you've taken that education and that practical application of that education when you were working in the Norwegian Ministry of, what's it called?
Foreign
Ministry, Norwegian Foreign Ministry, thank you. It's not easy to separate Norwegian and English in my brain sometimes. So you've taken that experience of working in the Norwegian Foreign Ministry and you've actually, I don't want to say downsized it because you've transmuted it. You've transformed it into something that is applicable quite locally and almost on an individual basis. Yeah. That's amazing.
Because
that's amazing.
For me, after all of the thinking, that's just how my mind works, right? Yeah. Like always looking for solutions, like, this doesn't resonate. Like, how can I kind of adapt it to my own truth, right? And I realized, like, why do we have all these wars in the world? Like it's because we're out of tune with our nature, whether it's the physical nature, the battle over natural resources, greed, like all these things, or if it's like an inner battle in our inner nature. And like I said before, like my passion is to kind of reunite people with that sense of guardianship for their nature, to take responsibility of their own ecology in a way. And the tools and the means for how to do that changes all the time. But for me to be able to be grounded in one place and to practice the simple art of forest therapy or nature connection, that just brings it all together for me.
So do you consider yourself a teacher, or are you just, and I don't want to use the word just because that minimizes it, are you a teacher or are you a catalyst through which people can teach themselves?
I'd say, good question.
I'm a decent podcaster.
I am what I am, but I am a human being that, as a nice Neen would put it, is trying to speak heaven with an earth tongue. And reconnecting heaven and earth, reconnecting people to their truth, and whether that comes through teaching or catalyzing or guiding or painting for that sake, changes from day to day and each moment.
How often do you paint?
I paint, that's a good question. Like, actually this fall I've been really engaged in some personal shadow work, and but it's just kind of loosening up now. Like I started taking commissioned painting work, and I can feel it's a good thing, and I can feel the spirit of art. It's an actual spirit coming back into my field and like preparing me for 2021, which I think is going to be a very creative year. So
you've experienced up through the years then a wave of greater and then lesser productivity with your painting? It's something that comes and goes? So the paintings are always there, and I have this like master document or journal where I sketch out all the kind of like the raw images, but it's more about having the space and that like clean energy, to develop them the way I see them. So you don't struggle when you're less active in painting. You don't struggle with that. It doesn't stress you out. Songwriters have writer's block and they freak out and their lives are ruined because of it.
I don't.
How does that relate to you?
Yeah, no. So there's a time for everything. And when I don't make art, there's something else that's supposed to come through, like whether it's medicine music or if it's poetry or
medicine music. You create medicine music?
I play guitar. Yeah.
You play guitar? Wow.
I actually received a song a couple of days ago that I'd love to play one day.
Oh, absolutely.
It's called En Gyllene Saga, the Golden Saga.
The Golden Saga.
Yeah. But that's a side
note. If I would have known you played, I would have asked you to bring a guitar. I have. But I'm left-handed. You see my guitars and some of my instruments over there.
I'm also left-handed.
But you probably play, right? Yeah. So many of us don't play. And actually, that is more convenient because it is almost impossible to find a good left-handed guitar.
Yeah.
So I don't have very many. I think I have, maybe I do have a lot. I think I have 6 guitars and one bass.
Wow.
Actually.
What a collection.
So let me just take that statement back. I do have a lot of guitars, but the ones I have, I treasure them because they are very hard to find. So you're smart. You're left-handed, but you play right.
Yeah.
I'm stubborn.
No, just back to how the spirit of art translates into my day-to-day reality.
Yeah.
Like it can be paintings, but it can also be poetry, and it can also be through food. Like any creative outlet. Or if it's like a get-together with friends, like in a jam, something like that.
Yeah.
But
do you sing?
I think, I do too. Well, I'm not the best singer. I'm learning all the time, but don't make me sing now. But I was going to say that I think the magic or lies in creating the conditions for the creative spirits to arise in your surroundings, right? So clearing stagnant energy from your space, preparing your space, whether it's your body or... So you have to be
at peace and you have to have... Okay.
Yeah, like I need to tidy my house and vacuum and clean my crystals and light the incense and do all these kind of small things because I know what conditions creativity thrives in.
Yes.
Because creativity for me is creation. It's the Holy Spirit, Shekinah, the goddess, and she loves it clean so that she can flow unobstructedly, and there's no kind of clutter in the way for her.
So my studio is too small and messy then for you to be
well, your creativity is different than mine.
My creativity, I admit this, and I have several rounds with my wife about this. My creativity always rises out of chaos. A messy studio and a somewhat messy and chaotic life. And then maybe it is that inspiration that then leads me away from that chaos and leads me to my more peaceful self.
Yeah.
And then the creation actually comes out, and it's just a painting. It's a shadow of what that craziness and chaos was.
Exactly. I think, all amazing artists have very different ways of receiving the spirit,
Neil Young has always said that throughout his entire career, and he's been doing it for, almost 60 years, he always records when there's a full moon. There's something in the naturalness of that full moon phase. It stimulates him to create, and he goes in and he records when there's a full moon. So there's something to that.
Makes sense. And if you're more interested, you could look into biodynamic agriculture, where they actually grow vegetables based on the natural rhythms of the constellations of the stars and all of this. I could see my life moving more and more into these practices, I'd love to learn from some of the teachers that have mastered the art of, for instance, creation, right? Creation that is aligned with the natural rhythms of the air. And I'm very inspired by the I Ching. You've probably heard of it. It's this ancient wisdom text that tells you the rhythms of nature, and so that you can kind of align yourself a little bit more. A lot of the work.
Just imagine if we were more aware of those kind of things, and I shouldn't take that meeting now. Maybe I should. I feel like I should take it later, and then you you know, because the moon is this, that, or the other, and that kind of explains why you had that gut feeling, and would then raise your awareness to these different rhythms, these different natural rhythms.
You know, today is actually the new moon.
You said something about that when we scheduled it for you. Yeah. It's the new moon today.
It's a time for planting new seeds, time for family, time for reflection. So if you have...
This is a new seed.
Yes, it's a new seed.
New seed of friendship. Yeah.
Yes, seeds of liberation.
Yeah. Well, I don't have the knowledge on it, but I've definitely throughout the years read up on these kinds of things, and it's definitely interesting to me. And I don't know, how do you spread the word to people, to more people, to start thinking of these things, of natural rhythms in life? How can we make this more accessible?
You don't need to spread it. You need to become it.
live by.
You need to live it.
To live it, yeah.
And then you'll see the impact as your vibration becomes more and more natural in a way. Yeah. Like it happened to me. Like I'm the first person to say that I don't really know anything at all. You know, I've become so humbled in my own search, and I feel like I have less and less opinions about things and more and more
absolutely.
Just reflections.
Yeah. The more I learn, the more humble I become.
Yeah, absolutely. In the end, you know, the only thing you can know is yourself, and that's why it was written above the door of the Oracle of Delphi. Like you can become your own oracle and your own wisdom teaching, but you need to be able to create that silence around yourself to see your reflection clearly. You know.
And so how do I explain to someone that there's no arrogance in that? You know, when we say that we have the tools ourselves, the devout Catholic who lives a life that tries to emulate the humbleness and humility of Christ would then look at someone who says something like that as being arrogant. How do you speak against that, or do you speak against it?
Why do you need to?
Exactly. I just answered my own question.
You just wake up in the morning and you have a gentle stretch.
And it's just about living the way you think is best for yourself, and people will catch on to that.
Choosing your battles, right? Yeah. Choosing the people that make you feel soft in your heart. Choosing yourself. Choosing channels where you can express your emotions or your truths and all that. And yes, we might end up in conversations and we can have debates that last for hours.
Sure.
But it will always lead back to that present moment and the quality of your present moment. So this is also something I love to teach, you know, like what is the quality of your present moment right now? You know, like I'm warm, I'm feeling these natural fabrics on my body, I have water.
For those of you who are listening, she has the coolest outfit. It looks... You know, we're talking about all things natural. She's wearing things that just look so natural. The way you're dressed right now, I could picture somebody 300 years ago wearing that.
I love the timelessness
of
my clothes.
Exactly.
I feel like the best outfit for me is like one where I could exist at any time, at any age, you know. But
I think you nailed it, because that looks like I could see like a Renaissance painting of a Nordic lady.
Oh, thank you very much.
It would be that right there.
Back to the quality of your present moment, you know, like whether it's your relations or even your sense of smell or the sound, the crackling fireplace in the background, you know, like, and this goes into the theme of life design. Like, how can you design a life for yourself where slowly by slowly you're kind of letting go of the things that doesn't serve you, and you're drawing more beauty in, you're drawing more softness in. And this comes with this comes a theme that's like kind of the closest, I guess, to my heart, which is the rise of the divine feminine in our society. We have it's so funny that we haven't actually talked about that throughout the whole session, but this is where I feel there's so much to say, and so much, and at the same time nothing at all, because it's all about embodiment. But there is this shift happening right now in the world where the feminine qualities of stillness and yin and softness and nurturing vibrations are coming back more and more into our day-to-day reality, but it actually necessitates each and every one of us, not whether we're a man or a woman, to kind of open for that sensation in our bodies and in our multidimensional bodies.
So how do we see that this is manifesting itself in today's world? This shift to the, what did you call it, the feminine?
The rising feminine.
The rising feminine.
Or the divine feminine.
The divine how do we see this manifest itself? How do you, when you say that this is happening, how can I open my eyes and see, yes, it is happening?
So my teacher, Richard Rudd, he's the founder of something called the Gene Keys. He would probably say that we are experiencing a shift from fire to water, where it doesn't, we don't really need to speak so much about kind of the feminine or masculine or anything like that, but the quality of how the world vibrates, right? So fire is very yang, it's very kind of forward thinking, and it's very like it can transform things very fast, whereas water is more about the emotional realm. It's more about presence and stillness and also waves and all that, but we're feeling the shift from doing to being, and we're supposed to end up in a beautiful balance between the two. But the feminine force or the feminine quality has been very suppressed for many, many years, right? With oppressive structures of governance, oppressive or even dominating structures, and living in Norway, we have this opportunity and comfort to actually start living out the feminine way. And for me, this is much more of a, let's say, life path, than an action. So it's very difficult to kind of pinpoint exactly what it is. But for me, it's about creating more circles in society, instead of squares, and bringing back the softness, bringing back the heart, bringing back the hearth, like the central fireplace of the house and the home, and
the gathering place.
Exactly, and allowing her, and when I say her, I mean the goddess, or the spirit of the goddess, to take more place and space in our day-to-day relations, whether it's about making things more sacred. Say you have a meeting and setting an intention for that meeting, lighting a candle for that meeting, like ritualizing your day. And in the old days, women often had that task, in the communities. They were the holders of the light codes, or the torch of wisdom, or Sophia, the divine mother of wisdom, like having that kind of guardianship over the feminine qualities in the community. And it's disappeared, and the women today are like forced into kind of having to be more masculine, because we have to produce, and we have to fit into all these masculine structures. And this is the kind of the softest or the most important revolution that I've come to kind of live out in my life, because I see my family tree as a kind of a visual, and I see that there's a branch on my tree right now where there's a potential to flower, to blossom as a woman, right? And so it's almost like I'm doing it on behalf of all of my ancestors also. I
see. Interesting. So you think that then, from the way you describe that, it sounds like things are moving towards a more balanced world, a more peaceful world. And yet, at the same time, we see, for example, the craziness of the last 4 years with so much hatred and division in the United States. How does that match? How do you approach that? Do you think of that? For example, we also have a huge debate about race in Norway, blackface and things like that. Do you engage in those discussions? Do you put thoughts onto those negative subjects at all?
Definitely, but I don't have so many opinions or judgments about it.
You just take it in for what it is?
I take it for what it is, and then I focus on the kind of the far-sightedness of the situation. And, the lotus flower grows from murky waters, same as the Norwegian water lily. So you need for the mud, in a way, to kind of clear before you can build new structures, or before you can see the blossoming of the lotus flower.
So we're in a phase where the mud is settling and something good is going to come of these ugly times that we've had.
Definitely.
Yeah. I feel the same way.
It's almost like the phoenix, rising from the ashes.
Yes.
Like something has...
into something more beautiful than it was before.
Mm.
I look at it that way as well. I don't... and I discuss these things a lot because of my podcast and because of the type of people that I'm communicating with currently. But I'm not one who, I can discuss those negative things, but I don't think that the negative things, the debate on race in Norway, the last 4 years of politics in the United States, I don't think that is the situation in perpetuity. I think it's just a phase that had to be gone through, and something better is going to come out of it. Something better is coming out of it already.
Yeah. It's opening all these kind of old chests that have sunk to the bottom of the ocean, we're opening them, and it's bringing in the age of transparency.
Exactly. Transparency, and that can be a painful thing.
Yeah.
When I'm discussing these things about race in Norway with people, the tendency for some Norwegians is to get defensive immediately because the transparency has now presented itself. In other words, that there is an issue with race in Norway, and some people don't want to admit that. But I enjoy having that conversation, and I feel that conversation always leads to a more enlightened situation. Because if it's a conversation, that means that you are listening. If you're listening, you're learning, and if you've learned, it's more enlightenment.
Yeah. If only everyone were listening as closely as you were.
Exactly. And there's the problem. But I think one has to come to terms with the fact that you cannot make people listen. And when I realized that for some years ago, I felt so much more at peace. Because when you stop spending time trying to change someone else's thoughts, there's a certain amount of freedom that comes with that. And it took me a long time to realize that, but
and sometimes these debates or conversations can be very kind of draining on your energy, So it's also an opportunity for each and every one of us to come in touch with our innermost truths and to seek the situations where we feel energized, and we feel rejuvenated after having been with another person in conversation.
Yeah.
And this is where we find our soul families also, because we find friends or people that lift us up, and we are there for the people that need us. If there's fear behind these words, or if there's insecurity, or if there's anger. But for me, it's all about creating the spaces for these emotions to be processed, and nature holds all of it, and eats all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why nature and ecotherapy has become my most important tool for this.
So this is not something you do. This is how you live.
Yeah.
Where do you see this leading you to? What is your, when you walk a path, you can't always see the goal, but you have a visualization of what the goal is, or where the path ends. Where does your path end?
Deeper and deeper and deeper into the present moment.
Yeah.
I would love to also facilitate nature therapy circles for conflict resolution. I would love to teach children how to be more in connection with nature and helping our future generations breathe more easily.
Would you do that through cooperating with schools or through families getting their children into it?
I think more and more youth are waking up to the same core tools, so that it's not only me that's going to be doing this.
I see.
I'm very happy if I get to paint and to have a peaceful kind of every day, to be able to see clients and to be able to teach my ways to others in the future. But I see us doing this together, you know. Yeah. The tools are becoming so true that there's no doubt that like breath practices, you know, like or yoga or art, just anything that obstructs the flow. Yeah. We will have remedies for it. And the closer we get to nature, the less healing work we have to do. So I really believe in the brighter days.
How tied into your physical health is this mental, spiritual way of thinking for you? Has it kept you healthier?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah,
for sure. Like when I had my kind of breakthrough, I started eating much more healthy. I don't eat anything that's processed anymore because there's more information for my body to kind of decipher.
Natural foods,
natural foods. And I make tinctures and flower essences from my local herbs and plants to feel that.
Do you
connection.
Go out and gather?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I gather plants for the different seasons.
Snoopy, my wife, I call her Snoopy.
Yeah.
she does that. Yeah. She I wish she should have actually been here. She would have had so many questions for you and everything. But that fascinates me that she can go out and she knows what this green thing on the ground is and what it can do for me physically. And then she'll pick it up and she'll bring it home, and then all of a sudden it's in my food or in something I'm drinking. And that just fascinates me. You can't get much more connected to the earth than that when you're actually using what the earth provides. Yeah. In order to enhance your health.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
And you know the Norwegian eco-philosopher Arne Næss, he's one of my heroes. He says, which is logical, you know, the longer you live in one place, the more that place will start producing plants and remedies that will help you in return with any diseases that you have in your life. The more rooted you are in a place, like say that you're living on a little farm and you have a bio toilet, you know, and the nutrients from your circulation.
Because you're giving into the earth and it's giving back and so on. It's a cyclist
Yes, exactly.
Of give and take. Interesting.
And when we live in the cities, we're very cut off from that cycle. Yes. So we have to kind of find our medicine or remedies elsewhere. But when we are that connected to nature, it's all kind of circulation.
I see. Do you see a conflict between modern medicine and the healing power of nature? Is there a conflict there, or can they work symbiotically?
I like to think that nature helps us a lot with like the preventive dimension of disease, right? Preventing disease by removing blockages. And some of us have come that far in our disease process that we've actually received like physical symptoms of spiritual crises, for instance. So we will need modern medicine, and modern medicine has come so far for a reason. So a symbiosis between the two. But I'm a big kind of, I like to always ask and consult nature first.
For example, a person who is depressed, maybe, and I say maybe because I never want to tell anyone what to do, but maybe before you start on some sort of tablet, maybe before you even start with any kind of psychotherapy, you know, with a counselor, a psychologist or something, maybe a simple walk in nature. I mean, not so simple. Maybe it needs to be a prolonged regiment of close contact with nature. That might solve that depression.
Yeah, and you know, I just bottled my summer's harvest of St. John's wort, which is called Johannesurt in Norwegian, which is one of the best known remedies for depression and anxiety. So there's always a solution in nature and in your immediate environment if you are open to receive the message.
Sure. Well, I know there's been some depressing things the last year of my life. I lost my son to a heroin overdose, and it crushed me. I'm still trying to figure out how to work through it, but I am working through it. And I know that when my wife takes me out and we're up in the hills and the sun is shining, the wind's blowing through the trees, and I swear the trees are talking. You hear it. You hear it. And there is something healing in that. And I feel better. I feel better during and after. It has, in other words, it has a lasting effect. And I kind of relate that to the same effect as any kind of a tablet would have for me.
There's deep consolation to be found in the whispers of the wind and the
there really is.
Of
there
the water.
Really is something medicinal there.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's our relative ability to slow down, to allow nature to provide for us that is in the way. You
have to breathe.
Yes.
And the breathing thing is a literal thing. Every day I take at least 15 minutes for myself. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It could be so simple as me sitting on the couch. Or I could be sitting in here, in my studio in between tasks. And I just will sit and try not to think of anything and just focus on my breathing. And all of a sudden, I'm breathing freer. I'm more relaxed in my shoulders and whatnot. And I feel better afterwards. To me, that is a strengthened connection that I had for 10 minutes to the naturalness of my body. Breathing is natural, isn't it? So during the course of a day, if you're busy and overworked, you're interfering with that natural process of your breathing, which then leads to tension and potential illness. 10 minutes of that natural medicine of just feeling the natural rhythm of my breathing, it does something for me. And I try to do that. I do that every single day, at least 10 minutes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's
everyone should follow your example.
If you're listening and you hear that, and there's no hocus pocus in that. This stuff is real. This stuff is natural. I do that. And it's so simple for everyone to do. It doesn't matter what walk of life. You can take 10 minutes. You should take 10 minutes. Don't you deserve 10 minutes to just breathe?
Exactly.
Just breathe.
It's our most profound medicine.
It is.
We have. And the body has a natural intelligence, which is found in the breath. So the breath knows where to go to clear away these obstacles. And you see when this starts happening inside of your body, it will also start happening on the outside of your body. So your life will become easier and you'll start receiving each teaching that you need for your next unfolding. Absolutely.
You just have to be open to it. How many clients or how many people do you touch per week? How many people do you...
Physically or...
touch, how many people do you get to share this with in one form or another, whether it's I don't know if you do telephone consultations or what, but how many people do you reach?
So on the 11th of November this year, I kind of opened a new door in my own journey as a practitioner, where I started giving, in the whole of November, giving consultations on donation. There were so many more responses than I thought would come. So I managed to kind of make space for all of them now in November and December. And on a weekly basis, I'd say I'd have maybe 4 to 5 physical meetings with clients that could last for like an hour to 2.5 hours almost, depending on the needs.
This one has lasted for an hour and 33 minutes. So.
And then I'd have some clients on Zoom, for instance, doing gene key readings, which is an I Ching astrological reading for self-illumination, as it's called. And I could have clients for art therapy, for instance, or be able to make space for my more kind of physical production.
Okay.
But I try to keep it intimate, and I don't want to have too many clients during a week because I'm also holding space for their processes.
I see.
And it's might sound a little bit abstract, but
no, it doesn't actually. I understand.
The second people kind of contact me, it's almost like some kind of channel or space opens for their journey, and
it could be too much if you just let it get out of control. So you have to time it in a way.
And integration is also a really important part of it for me. So I spend a lot of time kind of following up on the clients and suggesting other channels for them, like whether it's to go to a yoga session with an amazing teacher that I know, or if it's going to song circles or any other practice in the community that could kind of activate or further deepen their experience.
So it's structured in a coaching sense, as opposed to like a single session or a series of sessions. You're basically coaching them, which means you're pointing them maybe to other people who could help them on their journey. It's not just you, in other words.
Because I would like to see them grow and unfold like with the natural flow of their own intention,
Right. Interesting.
And we are so many people right now, like we're so many like some people call them light workers, but I just say that we can call them activated youth. We're so many people ready to kind of take in all these people that feel a little bit lost, and sometimes I feel lost, so I also need to go to see somebody else for my lostness.
I picture it as a network where, and that goes along with why I asked you, do you feel like you're a teacher or do you just feel like you're a facilitator? Because I can't imagine anyone ever knowing everything there is to know about these things.
Exactly.
Which would then put you and other people who work like you do in a constant situation of being a student, if you will.
Yeah. Eternal
it's a network of contacts of people who think similarly and who can help each other.
Yeah. Because you will need different types of medicines on your journey, right? Or different types of teachings. It's almost like we're this big, brilliant jewel reflecting all these different rays and fragments of the one. and sometimes we need new challenges, or we need to be seen for something larger than what one person can give us. So in that sense, the circle is a better platform, or even like tribal dances with all of your friends, Yeah.
It's so interesting. It's a never-ending learning process.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I ask how old you are?
I'm 33.
33. Still learning.
Still learning.
What's the age of the average client?
Ooh, none. I think I haven't started working with kids yet, even though that's something that I'd love to do in the future.
As you mentioned,
because I had like problems with my breathing and constriction in my own heart when I was a child. So I'd love to kind of be able to help.
Did they call it asthma or?
Yeah. But I actually like brought it down. I traced the pain in a way to my parents' divorce and all of the unexpressed grief that came about from that actual happening.
How old were you when they divorced?
I was between 10 and 12.
Okay.
Yeah. But when I located the seat of that pain, like my asthma just disappeared because I treated it from the inside out in a way.
Divorce is a traumatic thing. I was 18 when my parents divorced, but everything leading up to it, it leaves its mark.
Yeah.
It leaves its mark on a child. It does.
And also, like the most critical or painful experiences in your life actually point you to your core wound, like the reason why you came into this world, and the core wound can help you find the medicine that you can help other people with, that have had similar experiences, or that, for instance, for me, my core wound is separation. And in essence, that means separation from source itself, right? So I'm always kind of having to soften or ease my transitions from one state to another, because I feel so strongly about like the separation and the pain and the
Yeah.
So for me, it's important to kind of to make sure that I'm cared for by myself, whereas another person's core wound can be shame, or rejection, or so they'll have a complete other, different set of tools.
I'm just checking off boxes in my head. Shame, yes. Rejection, yes.
But then kind of when we've been through, like some of them, we've ended up in a place where we have a toolbox or like a little apothecary that we can choose from.
I like to use the imagery of, I have a backpack.
Yeah.
And on my journey, I see things that can help me. And I put those in my backpack and I carry it further. But at the same time, there's things that maybe I didn't even put in my backpack that are harming me. And at the same time as I'm putting something in, that's my opportunity to see something in that backpack that's just weighing me down. It's harming me. And I can let that one go.
Yeah, yeah.
A little bit of imagery there.
Yeah, there's this Norwegian folk tale about Askeladden.
Oh yeah, Askeladden.
Yes. He's like on this journey. He's like collecting all these things on the way, and then he reaches the castle, and he talks to the princess, and he actually manages to målbinde henne, which means that he has a tool for anything that she comes to him with, you know. And he ends up not only with the princess, but a whole kingdom as well.
Do I have a kingdom yet? No, not yet.
You have a castle.
I have a castle?
Yeah.
I have a castle. No, this isn't my castle. The place we have up north, up on Silent, that's the castle. My heart is up there. I was talking to someone a couple of days ago about this. That place up there, and also my home place back home in the United States, when I'm there, when my feet are on that ground and when I'm breathing that air, I feel something. And some people try to say, well, that's just, you just relax because you're at home, but it's more than that. And I've been searching for the way to verbalize that so I can properly explain it to people, but there's just something I feel when I'm in those places. I can't put words on it, but
magic.
Well, it is. It feels like it. It is. It is something magical.
Spirit.
It's just a sense of belonging, a sense of peace, a sense of a degree of weightlessness.
A sense of aliveness.
Aliveness, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I know the feeling.
You know the feeling. Of course you do. Well, I could sit and talk to you forever. I want to ask you just a couple more things before you go. I'm not sure how much time you have. But one thing,
for a couple more things.
Couple more things. What you play guitar and you sing. What kind of music do you listen to?
Wow, good question. On the way here, on the train, I was listening to Huni Queen tribes from the Amazon rainforest.
Yes.
Play their medicine songs. Very powerful chants about our connection to nature. But I also recently discovered Grace Vanderwaal. She won the, I think, American Idol or something.
Yes.
Not even Idol.
Or was it America's Got Talent? No,
yeah.
America's
Something
Got
like
Talent.
that.
Yeah.
And I was just watching her videos on YouTube, and she also looks amazing. She reminds me of my own inner star girl. So yeah, I love Disney songs. I love On the Great Alkali Plains by Espen Jørgensen.
I just have to stop you right there. And I tell him this every time I speak with him. And I don't speak with him often enough. By the way, he holds the record for my longest podcast episode.
Wow.
It was 4 hours.
Do you want to try and beat it?
It was 3 hours and 58 minutes. I actually I couldn't upload the whole thing, so I had to divide it into 2 episodes. But altogether, it was almost 4 hours. But that album, On the Great Alkali Plains, is one of the most peaceful pieces of music, or peaceful gatherings of music. It's a whole album that I've ever heard in my life.
Let's hope there's more coming soon then.
Espen, if you're listening, well, I should call him afterwards and tell him you need to come with more music, Espen, because you make so many people so happy with what you do. He puts out from time to time these little videos on his Instagram, and I just love it.
I have a very strong feeling that there will be more very soon.
I would love to work with that guy. I hope he would give me the honor of playing with him at some point. Oh, my gosh.
We also have some special things planned together.
Performances?
Yeah.
Can you tell any secrets about where and when?
No, not yet, but it will be a combination of my words and his music.
How beautiful is that? Will you write in Norwegian or English?
I write in both languages, but I think we're aiming to reach a more international audience. So let's see. That's
always been my thing. I've only spoken English with you, but my Norwegian is pretty good, unless I'm tired or nervous. But I've never even thought about trying to write music, lyrics in Norwegian.
No.
I think it would, first of all, it's just scary because it's not my native language. But I've always had in mind that thing of reaching the widest audience possible. Having said that, there's not that many people who have heard my music, but I wouldn't want to limit myself by writing in Norwegian. Do you feel like because there's a lot of focus, like NRK plays a certain amount of Norwegian music on the radio to make sure that Norwegian music has a life. Would you feel, or do you feel any loyalty issues there when you don't write in Norwegian?
Sometimes I think that I am not writing, I am being written. And I feel like a lot of the music and songs and poetry that comes through me has its own kind of mission.
I see.
So I listen.
So it comes to you in English then?
In English and Norwegian. Like the song that came 2 days ago, it came in Norwegian actually, and just there, like finished like one night, and it's all about listening. It's been one of the themes for our conversation, and I feel like if you listen deep enough, there's a song for you, on the other side, and which takes us back to the very beginning of our conversation about the melody that we each have. And it's been an honor to be here with you and get a glimpse of your melody.
Well, I'm honored that you took the time to do this. I know you have your practice, and you have people who need you, and people with whom you commune and whatnot, so that you took the time to come here and walk from the train station here and not call me to come pick you up.
Well, it's a misty day, but there's rain outside, and I love the feeling of rain on my skin.
It's fun to walk in the rain. It is.
It is very fun, and there were some great puddles there to jump in as well.
Oh, you're a puddle jumper too.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never too old for that. No. Never too old for that.
No.
Well, let's bring this to a close. Again, I thank you so much for coming. For me, it's a learning process. I've learned a lot from you. You've said some things. You speak with such imagery, and I'm a guy I live in images. It's the images I see that lead me through my life. And you said some things that I will definitely reflect on. I am reflecting on. And you talk about the ripple effect when you meet people. This is definitely a ripple.
May it go on and on and on.
And on and on. So let's go out there. Let's see if Snoopy came home. She's been out walking. She may still be gone. When she walks, she walks. She's out there. So it could be, I think she left around 10:30 or so. So she could still be out walking. Let's go out there, see if she's here.
Let's go and have a look.
Thank you so much, Carolina. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Too.
Oh yeah. One more time. Your website is norwegiansage.com.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Instagram as well at Norwegian Sage. I have a lot of beautiful new artwork prints that are being printed actually today. So I'd encourage all the listeners to have a look and see if there's anything they like that they would want to share for Christmas.
And when I post this, I'll put some links to your website and to your Instagram so people can get there.
Thank you.
I'll do everything I can to support you. I love the work that you're doing.
Oh, I'm so grateful.
And you always have a place here on my podcast,
you.
or if you ever want to call, if there's ever any way we can work together in the future, I am so open. I'm going to take my mask off so you can see me smile.
Wow.
I'm sitting here masked up.
What a beautiful smile.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But just know that you have a place in my podcast, you have a place in my life, in my family's life. You're always welcome.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It means a lot.
My pleasure. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye.